Hello and welcome to the North Coast Journal Preview, where we take a look at the stories being followed in the upcoming edition of the North Coast Journal. I'm your host, Dave Frank, and I'm joined this week by Jennifer Fumiko Cahill, Arts and Features Editor, and staff writer, Iridian Casares. Welcome, guys.
Hello. How you doing, Dave?
Pretty good. I guess there's a little bit in the air this week that I've seen in the New York Times that there's like uptick of coronavirus around the country. Some communities have double and triple rates over the last few weeks, which is a little startling. We're hearing news about the Lambda variant. There's all sorts of interesting and exciting COVID news, which I think segues pretty well into what you guys are covering. What's on the cover of this week's North Coast Journal?
Well, this week, as you can see, we've got look at this. We're in the office and we have an actual paper in front of us. We have a vaccine issue going this week, and we're talking about a lot of different issues in and about the COVID vaccine, vaccination rates in Humboldt County, et cetera. As it stands now, or at least as of yesterday, I guess, we were at 48% of Humboldt County residents fully vaccinated, and just another 6% having had one dose and, on their way to full vaccination. Yeah. So we are not anywhere near that herd immunity that everybody was dreaming about, months and months ago when we first got the vaccine.
Yeah, that compares to, I think, about 60% nationally. So it's not great news on that front, considering we have so much available resources for folks. Which I guess in your cover, you've asked people about their experience with vaccination. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what your contributors added to the paper this week?
Yeah, so we asked the community, tell us your vaccine stories, whether you were hesitant, what happened to you after you got your vaccines. And we got a lot of submissions from the community just about their stories. We have some that talked about how they have a genuine fear of getting injections. And then there's also a story here by Nancy Short, who talks about her niece, I think it's her niece, who's like 38 years old and has had neurological problems because she had gotten COVID. And so that's what her family is dealing with now. And then there are other stories just about the common symptoms that people got after their second dose, and it's just, feeling grateful also was a huge topic of discussion in the submissions. It's just kind of having this protection now is making them feel a lot better about seeing their friends and seeing their families. And so I don't know if you...
It's really interesting to go through and see, like Iridian mentioned, the issue of needle fear was something that, neither she or I had really considered heavily in all of this in terms of, what really weighs in your decision, but if you pass out when you get shots, like, this is a big deal. Yeah. And then it comes to, all the people who were waiting, people who, who've had friends and relatives growing ill. And I think, Nancy's story, which she mentioned, is interesting to me because we have this sort of overarching narrative about who gets COVID and what it's like for them. And, this idea that if you're young, and 38 to me is still young.
It is young.
That if you're young, thank you.
Yes.
That if you are young, if you're not, an elderly person, that you'll be fine. And the survival rates are good, but there's a lot we don't know about long haul symptoms. The COVID long haulers are, experiencing quite a lot. Problems with mobility, problems with, respiration and things like that. And I think sharing those person-to-person accounts, it's almost numbing as the numbers get higher and higher nationally. You can think about one person, 10 people, but it's hard to think about 500,000. It's hard to fathom how those big numbers relate to people's lives, how they relate to people's experiences. And so, giving them the megaphone to share their stories was important to us. And as Thad wrote in his introduction, we have a editorial in the paper this week also about vaccination, and in it we talk about how the hot takes and the kind of conspiracy theories and things like that have really eaten the conversation in some ways, how they're the loudest voices sometimes. And we don't hear so much from our neighbors and from people with more kind of middle of the road positions. And by middle of the road, I mean sort of everyday people, not to the extreme left or right. And yeah, that vaccination has become such a political pawn changes the conversation and sometimes makes it difficult for people to share their own experiences, their own feelings, their worries, etc. And so, I hope everybody will take a run through and read some of these stories. Some of them are longer, some of them are just a few sentences. One of them is numbered, with 5 distinct points, and maybe that's a person with a very organized home. But they're talking about their work, taking care of elderly people and things like that. And it's, people's everyday lives and how the vaccine has affected them. But it's definitely worth a read and worth a share with your own neighbors. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought it was great. The one thing that stood out to me was, like you alluded to, or actually explicitly stated, it's that silent majority. It's the people who aren't adamantly pro or con. They just they did their own assessment, and they came up, they decided it was important for them, for their family, for their community, for their job, for their peers. And it was a little uncomfortable for some people. And yeah, that stinks. You take an ibuprofen, the pain goes away. But I think that the general tone was that it was important in people's lives, and they're thankful that we're in a country that has access, and that where most people, or at least half of all people, have made this choice. So I think that was a good cross section of our community. In addition to the community's voices, you both also wrote a piece about your own personal experiences, which I think add a lot to the conversation. So I'm not sure which one of you want to go first, but you both had very different experiences in dealing with a loved one, a close friend. In your case, Jennifer, you guys want to tell us a little bit about what you contributed from that perspective?
Well, the headline of the story is Across Miles and Borders, and they're both are about our personal experiences trying to talk to people in our lives about COVID vaccination. And as we are in this office, so are we in the paper side by side with our columns. I'll let Iridion start, since she was successful in her efforts.
Yeah, I guess I was. My mom and my grandmother got vaccinated. So my story is titled A Ripple Effect, because that was just kind of what happened to me. I wanted to know where my mom stood on the vaccine, because I knew that, especially in like Latino communities, that there are very vaccine hesitant people. And so I would ask my boyfriend, hey, like, what do you think my mom is like vaccine? Like, what's her stance? He was like, I don't know. And I didn't know either. And so on our weekly catch-ups, I asked her, I was like, hey, I kind of told her, I'm so excited to get my vaccine. Like, I can't wait to go back to normal. I can't wait to see you and visit you guys. And, then I kind of heard like a pause, and she was like, oh, I don't think I'm going to get it. And I just didn't realize how upset I was going to get if she had said that. And I did. And I was like, what do you mean? And I kind of got very angry and demanding. I was like, what do you mean? Like, this is a serious virus. And we started to talk about it. And I kind of realized that she didn't really know a lot about the vaccine, or how the vaccine works, and why it was kind of rushed, and why it's important for her to get her vaccine. And so, I told her what I knew, that the vaccine was just one part of the virus that tells your body to get ready to fight it off, and it protects you, and so, yeah. And also I think she didn't really know, because, I don't think my family has ever really known how like biomedicine works, because we have our own home remedies, to help us when we get sick, that we go to right off the bat, and so
Like what?
Yeah, and so I told her that, and then she went and told my grandmother, my abuelita, and told her exactly what I had told her. We were sitting. I had just gone recently to visit them, and my abuelita was in the kitchen. We were talking about her recent long month trip to Mexico, and thankfully she had gotten her vaccine right before she left, and she told her family over there, who's also very vaccine hesitant, yeah, I got my vaccine and this is what happened to me. And she explained it the way that I explained my mom, how she understood the vaccine to work. And she described it as like a spider without any legs that goes into your body and tells your body to be ready. And they were very surprised and impressed. And she was able to convince them that, the vaccine is safe. And they all went to go get their vaccinations when she was there, both of them. So it was her siblings, her in-laws, like pretty much everyone who's eligible to get a vaccine to get a vaccine. So in my case, it was kind of like a ripple effect. So so what I told my mom, she told my grandma told our family in Mexico. And so it was just kind of, I don't know, I feel really good about it, because it was, I don't know, it was something that I felt very passionate about, and my family listened to what I had to say. And I think, it reminds me of what, Humboldt County's public health officer, Ian Hoffman, has said over and over again, that it literally just takes one person to kind of convince a vaccine hesitant person to get their vaccine, to just kind of explain to them how they understand the vaccine, about their vaccination stories, just to kind of give them that push to make them feel better about getting vaccinated. And so, yeah, I'm just very grateful for having that experience.
I love that your family is like less frightened when they think about it as a spider injected into their body.
I know. I don't know. It was weird. And
These are the bravest people I've ever heard of in my life.
So on that vein, I thought it was pretty interesting that you described some of the traditional remedies that they were very comfortable with. And then, but that's how the spider scenario kind of fit into that mold. One of them was an egg. Is that? Can you just flesh that out a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So it's like for the evil eye. So a lot of people, they believe that when someone gives you evil eye energy, I believe that you get sick out of it, and you start feeling bad. Like you literally get symptoms of feeling ill. And so what you do is it's called a limpieza. So it's like a cleansing of an egg. So you just grab an egg from a carton and you rub it like all over your back and all over your body. And then you crack the egg in a glass bowl or in a glass cup. And then just kind of, there's different interpretations. If your egg has like white, is like opaque, or if it's clear, or if it has bubbles. And then after you do the cleansing, like you feel a lot better. And so it's just kind of very like witchcrafty, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, we were sort of comparing folk remedies yesterday in the office, and we did some wild stuff in my family. And among them, like we had the belief in my family, and I've never met like another Japanese person who believes this, but we had this idea that like if you ate too much chocolate, you would get a nosebleed. And that I can't figure out if my family was but I remember getting nosebleeds like at Easter. So I can't tell if that's like an old wives' tale from like somewhere in my family's like rural Japanese history, or if I'm the first child to ever eat so much chocolate that her nose bled. It's hard to know. Yeah.
I thought it was really interesting that, like, from the perspective of folks who are resistant or hesitant or just unsure, that there's a whole spectrum of things we don't know about why they may be resistant. Like, some people are afraid of needles. Some people know they're going to faint when they get a needle. That was one of the contributors. And there's also folk remedies where people are just like, look, I just don't do modern medicine. It's not my thing. Or even naturalists or, homeopathic folks that, they're just not down with modern medicine. But I feel like that this is a eye-opening observation that we can talk to people and just say, look, there's, even all that being said, there's still a reason to move forward.
No, I was going to say that's a little bit closer to where my experience was. My friend is not, what I wrote a story about my experience with a friend who's decided not to get vaccinated. And, her reasons have a lot to do with, with kind of a natural approach to health, for one thing. And a very deep distrust of modern Western medicine. And, not without reason in some cases. Our history with, with a lot of groups, especially, people of color and immigrants and whatnot has not been great for a lot of groups. So, her resistance is partly about feeling that she doesn't trust that medicine to be good for her, and also the belief that she can take care of herself through basically hygiene and caring for her health. And also, her spiritual belief that, if it's my time, it's my time. And it's been really hard for me to accept. And so I don't know if you saw it, but the New York Times had this kind of interactive, almost like a game that you could play, where they had a vaccine. It was in the opinion section, and it was like how to talk to friends and family about vaccine hesitancy. And it was like a little text bubble comes up and says, "Oh, I heard you got vaccinated. Aren't you worried about the vaccine?" And then you have 3 choices to make. And one of them might be like, actually, it's safer than, going out there amid COVID, or, of course I did, you psycho, or, you know what I mean? Like and then, well, what are your concerns? There are different levels of answers. And so I went through to try it, because when I heard that my friend was not getting vaccinated, I was like, okay, I need to have this conversation with her. And I went through and I just sucked. Just start to finish. I said the wrong thing every time, which for people in my life, this is not a surprise. And, my friend is very different from me, but also very similar in our hard-headedness. And, yesterday when we were talking about the editorial, Thad said to me, I feel like I can't be hammering at people. And I was like, well, maybe I shouldn't help with this, because, I'm that metaphorical hammer that thinks everything's a nail. And I knew that my conversation with her wouldn't go well. And she's a person who's perfectly capable of doing all kinds of research. She's a former PhD candidate. She's very smart and very intense, and has access to all kinds of information and all kinds of resources. So, she's not a person who lacks for information. And she's not a person who's just worried and needs to be reassured. She's sure. But in my heart and in my mind, I know that she's wrong in terms of what is the safest path, both for her longevity, her health, and for everyone's longevity. It's part of my struggle with her decision, is that it's a decision that affects the community. And it affects whether or not we are able to get out of this without, a zillion more variants, and eventually a variant that we can't vaccinate for. And so it's been really hard. And when we finally had our conversation on the phone, I kind of decided to, and I'm sure I will get lots of letters about the million ways that I could have done this better, but I kind of put up the white flag and just decided to, be there for my friend, accept her decision. If something or someone changes her mind, I'll be there to help. And if, she were to fall ill, which I hope doesn't happen, I'm knocking wood because I'm a superstitious person, I have to be there too. I can't be the person who she's afraid is going to say, "I told you so." And so it's been, it's been hard for me, and it's, there's nothing harder for me than keeping my mouth shut. So it's, that's kind of where I am in the struggle. And again, I'm really looking forward to lots of letters from people telling me what I could have, should have done.
I mean, I thought it was great that, it's very forthright, and from both of you, actually, this is all real, exposing your soul to a certain extent. A quick question, apparently, for each of you guys. So Jennifer, for folks who might be saying, like, look, I talk to my family, I talk to my friends, and rationally, realistically, I probably am not going to make headway. Any kind of advice? I know you sort of talked about it a little bit, but any sort of accepting what is sort of advice?
I mean, I think you have to, first of all, protect yourself and your immediate people, your immediate circle. And, for me, with my friend, that's going to mean changing our physical distance, right? So when we are together, when we are in the same city and we hopefully are able to see each other, I'm probably not going to be, close with her as we have in the past. And, it means masking. It means being outside. It means, having to set parameters with my kids. And it also means that, I'm going to have to I don't want to bring this up and fight about it from now till eternity. But I do want to make myself available and let her know that if she's, wanting to talk about stuff, or if she wants to, think out loud about her choices, that I'm here and I'm not going to, attack her. And I'm really going to try not to attack her.
Well, thank you. And Iridian, I noticed in your piece, you mentioned that, I think you were talking about your grandma or maybe your mom. Sorry, I don't remember which one. But you mentioned that, hey, these are really smart people and they're more than capable of doing their own research, but they've made the decision that they've made. So what I did in my part was I shared Spanish language resources with them. Can you tell us a little bit about what you shared, how you found it, and kind of for folks out there who want to maybe pick up on that technique?
Yeah, so my mom, she just got her master's degree. She's a very, very intelligent woman. But I think understanding things in English is a bit hard for her because her first language was Spanish. So, when she was in school, she would tell me, yeah, it takes me a really long time to read through these journals that I have to go through, and I have to do it a few times. So my mom could have easily gone and researched all the things that she needed to research. But I think I felt that if she was going to read something, I want her to read something in her preferred language, because scientific English is really, really hard, and it's probably especially hard for those who don't really understand or speak the language very well. So yeah, I sent her an email filled with links to news articles in Spanish. I sent her videos of doctors, Spanish-speaking doctors talking about the vaccines and the symptoms that they might feel. And so, but also, just kind of, I think I've always been a source of information for my mom. And if I can understand it, and it's kind of like my job as a news writer, where we take something very complex and make it very simple so that everyone understands it. It's kind of what I did for her. But
so you've been training for this?
I've been training for this. Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Well, I think that's what we need in our community, and then across the country, everyone's community, really. We need folks to just one-on-one kind of get down to talking about, the T chart of life, the pros and the cons, and where there's risks and rewards. But I think the takeaway from a lot of the contributing articles, and also from, I guess, Iridian's story too, not so much you, Jennifer, with your friend, unfortunately, but at some point, people are going to realize, hopefully more people will realize, look, this is a very dangerous and serious and deadly virus. And the vaccine seems to be, so far, millions of people around the world have safely taken it, and with very minimal complications. And so hopefully we can get the word out in our community. So thank you guys both for your contributions this week.
I'm going to knock wood again.
Me too.
We'll think positive, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's about going to do it for us this week. North Coast Journal is available online, available on newsstands. Pick one up, stay informed, get out there, get entertained, and stay safe. Till next time, take care.
See you next week.
Bye, guys.